Creative Life Survival Guide, where I share survival tips on creativity, productivity, and balancing a creative life. I'm your host, Laura. Hey creatives, today I'm really excited to tell you that next week I will be starting my creative life full time, which I think this podcast comes at a perfect time as a little bit of a reminder to myself as to, how I can thrive in a creative career. Now, I know a lot of times, these tips focus on, building your client list and focusing on money. And I think a lot of that kind of detracts from, they're all important, but it takes away a little bit from your creative career and the things that you actually do and love. And that's where the joy and passion is. That's where the value is. And so I wanted to focus on some tips that maybe you're not used to hearing a little bit around this subject. Now, cultivating our creative passion full-time is a dream of many creators, and you've worked hard to build this side hustle, but you really just can't satisfy that creative itch. You see others jumping in, and now is the perfect time to start your creative career. Now, it's kind of a scary leap to take. There's a lot of doubts. There's a loss of a steady income from your full-time job, and it's a lot of work. You are a single person trying to fill the role of many. And I just want to give this little bit of encouragement. You can do this. It takes courage to jump into a creative career, but here you are, you're ready to take the challenge. And here are some really awesome tips that I'm going to be applying to my own life. And the first one is start creating now. So many creators want to start, but they carry their insecurities into their new creative career. Other people keep, spewing their unsolicited doubts, their opinions, and some of them kind of stick. You hear, oh, you can't do this, or, a creative career isn't a real job. And unfortunately, the more you hear this, the more they kind of stick to you, and you kind of carry them around a little bit. And to be honest, I still have that feeling. I want things to be perfectly in place before I start something new. I want to plan on each day how it's going to look. I want to know what I'm going to be doing for the first 3 months or however long, and knowing how I'm going to follow this creative plan. But to be honest, sometimes it just takes a leap to kind of help you fight through all of those doubts. And so what I've done is adopt the 150 rule. So when I first came across this article, I kind of just felt like I had the answer to all of my problems. So the basic gist of this rule is think of something that you can do creatively in one day and still deliver 50% of the results. That's it. That's the rule. So think about something that you can do specifically in your creative endeavors that gives you can put it up, you can set it up all in one day and deliver at least half of the results. Now, the awesome thing about this is you can throw perfectionism out the window, and that kind of actually applies to any other, obstacles, doubts, or fears, because you're revolutionizing your thinking process. Instead of dwelling on the worry, instead of procrastinating, putting it off, waiting until the right time, you turn towards a kind of figure it out mentality. You start with what you can provide, and you kind of figure the rest of it out as you go, and you kind of build yourself with your creative career. So for example, I've launched my Patreon in this format. So it was really easy to set up. I set it all up in a day, and I can deliver actually over 50% of the rewards and benefits that I offer my patrons. But, getting the page out into the world was more important to get noticed, to start getting, traffic a little bit, before making sure that I have the, perfect video editing software for something that I might do, several months down the road to even a year down the road. So since launching, I've been able to see, all these different possibilities where, maybe others kind of saw issues at first, and I've gotten really good feedback and useful help on moving forward and creating content. I've reached out to other creators to ask, how do you do this? How do you work on this? How do you get noticed? And I think the awesome thing too is I've built a lot more confidence in my abilities. I've built my writing abilities, I've built my podcasting abilities, and I've even dabbled a little bit with video editing, because instead of worrying about I don't have all the skills yet, I got the work out there and learned as I went along. Now, the second thing is failure is going to be all around us. It's inevitable, but I think it's really important to embrace the experience. Now, I've talked a lot about learning out loud, and taking leaps will inevitably lead to some failures. So, whether you plan for it or not, there are things about your creative career that'll just kind of knock you back a bit. But the important thing is each time you fall, it's a wonderful chance to learn. Now, as a writer, you're continually putting your work out in the public and you're continually learning out loud. So you publish articles, you have, grammatical issues, you find flaws in scene structures. I'm reading my first book as part of my Patreon rewards, and I'm, kind of noticing some little things here and there. And I'm like, oh, I probably could have made that better. Or, but focusing on those things, it's a wonderful opportunity for me to know that, hey, since I'm writing the third book in this series, maybe I should focus a little bit. I've, made this mistake in the past. Maybe I should work on, fixing it in the future. So failure comes in many different forms. It could be grammar, form, structure, whatever it is in terms of your creative endeavor. But these are experiences that teach you. During that failure is when you have the choice to thrive, and you can, practice change and uncertainty. The more that you live into this fear, and it can help you prepare for the future. You find gaps in your skills and knowledge, and it gives you great substance to maybe develop into something successful. So when you see failure instead as a chance to learn rather than a place to give up, you can turn it into a thriving moment. And there will be many of these moments, and it's how you respond that will determine how your creative career proceeds. And consider this, we are all a culmination of our past experiences. So think of any failed projects that faded out, things you didn't try, things you did try and maybe didn't enjoy. All of these things make you who you are today, and these experiences contribute to the now. So in the moment, these failures and losses of interest may not seem like much, but they all help shape how you react in the future. So my experience as a college and professional athlete didn't really have a connection to writing, but the further I look, the more I get into this creative career, the more I can see how that experience changed my creative process and changed how I not only view failure, but, kind of the hard work and put your head down and keep going. So there are connections all around us, even if they aren't obvious. Now, my third tip is being willing to drudge through the drudgery. Now, it's a common thing that the minimalists have said, which are, some of my influencers, passion. Not everyone understands the difference between excitement and passion, but when you're starting a creative career, I have a feeling you understand a little bit more than others. And to see your creative career thrive, you have to be willing to go through the unpleasant parts of your passion. You have to drudge through the drudgery. Now, that might be the writing process when you don't feel motivated. It might be getting in front of a camera when you're sick and maybe really struggling to stay standing. It might be handling a concert when the speakers blow out or your guitar player decides to do a solo act and the concert venue doesn't have the right equipment for you to use. There are many other examples of this. Now, turning what was probably a side hustle into a full-time career is not for the faint of heart. So what used to be your creative escape from the 9 to 5 has now become your 24/7. You have to focus on your business at all times. You eat, sleep, and breathe your creativity, and you're trying to make a living as a creator. And it is in these times that you have to be willing to surround yourself with the ups and downs that come from a creative career. You have to be prepared for things not to go your way. There's going to be failure, and it's why you need to think back to your why. It's the reason, that passion, the reason that you started the side hustle in the first place. You wanted to create, you felt that urge, you felt it burning in your soul. You wanted to be unique. You wanted to share your passion with the world. And creators who thrive and succeed in these careers are the ones who drudge through the drudgery. They work through those downs. They focus instead on, how can I get through this? How can I become a better person through this? And when things are tough, they still create because at its core, they love to do it. Now, my fourth tip is to get value, you have to give value. So if you're pursuing your creative career for the money, you probably should have just stopped listening to this podcast. Yes, money is needed to survive, but money doesn't come from hoping that people come to you because your work is good. Money follows value. To get value from people, in this sense, money, you have to give value. And I think a lot of people focus first too much on the money, and instead of actually delivering something that changes somebody's life or impacts them in some way. Now, value is derived from your purpose, the why that I just discussed, your passion. When you aim to give value first, be that in the form of entertainment, lessons, advice, experience, you get value back. Your creations should first focus on the client, your fan, your follower, before you can actually make money. And it's a slow process. And that's why a lot of people in the beginning, they give these tips, have enough money in your bank account so that you can survive for a few months, which that is very important. You definitely should be prepared to have your living expenses at least covered for a few months before you get into this. You don't want to end up, 1 month later, really struggling to live and have to go back to the 9 to 5 or try to find a new job or whatever it is. And all of this creative process is really slow. So there are definitely some fixes or some buildups that you have to create for yourself just so you can thrive in this moment and focus instead on your creative endeavors. But to get money, you have to build trust. You have to deliver consistently. You have to focus on the right people and their needs and connect with them. And that's why this is not for the faint of heart. This is a lot of work. And as a single person, you are now doing all of these jobs. But just because it's slow, it doesn't mean that it's not worth it. You got into this because you love it. You felt that urge. You felt that creative urge to do something and create value. And the people who support your creative career are the people that truly deserve our thanks. They are the ones that we need to be giving more value to. So think back to all the doubters and critics who told you not to cultivate this creative career, and then instead look to your supporters who are building you up and joining you on this journey, and focus on them. These are the people that you want to focus on, not your critics. So continue creating value for them and they'll continue to follow. That's the whole reason they started following you in the first place. They believed in what you were doing. They believed in the value that you were providing, and they wanted to continue to support you. So in conclusion, a creative career is really rewarding. I mean, being able to pursue and cultivate our passions and share them with the world, it's a wonderful thing. And though thriving in our creative careers is not an easy feat, remember these tips for success. Just start creating, learn from your failures, drudge through the drudgery, and give value first and foremost. So thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Hey guys, if you want to see what I'm doing with my creative career and help me continue creating podcasts like this, head over to my Patreon. So at patreon.com/Laura Winter, I'm releasing my first novel, Soul Forgotten, for free. So each week I'll release a new chapter, but if you're able to support me, which you can cancel at any time, but you'll be able to listen to a lot of really cool podcasts that give commentary on the chapters, bonus content, inside looks at my creative career, and even get some free books. So I aim to provide value. So I hope you'll go and check it out and let me know what you think. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Creative Life Survival Guide. Be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast wherever you choose to listen. To find more information or survival tips for your creative life, head to laura-winter.com.